May 11th, 1942, or 17 a.m., the Gulf of St. Juste Lawrence, 11 kilometers off the Gaspe Peninsula. The fog is a cold, wet shroud. On the bridge of the SS Nicoya, able seaman Thomas O'Leary stares into a wall of solid grey. He can smell the land, the sharp tang of pine and the faint, sour odour of the pulp mills from the coast. He should be safe. This isn't the North Atlantic. This is the St. Lawrence River. This is home. His world is silent, save for the rhythmic thrum of Nicoya's own engines and the gentle wash of the river against the hull. Suddenly, a column of white water, invisible in the fog, erupts 70 meters off the port bow. The sound, a deafening metallic crump, reaches the bridge a half-second later. The steel deck beneath O'Leary's feet jumps, throwing him against the bulkhead. Before he can even shout, a second, more terrible sound follows, the high-pressure scream of steam and the grating shriek of a hull tearing apart. The Nicoya has been torpedoed. Less than 10 minutes later, a second torpedo slams into the freighter SS Leto. Panic floods the radio waves. In Ottawa, the military command is stunned. Capitan Lieutenant Carl Thurman, commanding U-553, has done the impossible. He has slipped past the patrols, penetrated the safe inland waterway of Canada, and opened a new front in the Battle of the Atlantic. The war is no longer over there. It is here, and Canada is blind. While the Nicoya's survivors cling to debris in the freezing river, another quieter battle is being waged 300 miles away, in the brick buildings of the National Research Council, NRC, in Ottawa. The labs at the NRC don't smell of salt air and diesel. They smell of hot vacuum tubes, ozone, and solder. The men here are not grizzled sailors. They are physicists, engineers, and graduate students. Many are amateur ham radio operators, recruited straight from university. They wear sweaters and spectacles, not uniforms. These are the radio kids. In 1940, the Tizard mission from Britain had delivered the most important piece of technology in the Second World War, the cavity magnetron. It was a small, copper disc that could generate high-power microwaves, the Rosetta Stone of modern radar. The British, bombed nightly, had the invention, but they needed an industrial partner to perfect it and mass-produce it. They turned to Canada and the United States. The NRC, in partnership with a new Crown corporation called Research Enterprises Limited, REL, was given a monumental task: build the Allied radar. But now, in mid-1942, their work has a desperate new urgency. In a cold, drafty hangar at Arcaf Station, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Sergeant Bill Mackenzie, a 20-year-old former radio repairman from Winnipeg, hunches over his new secret equipment. It's an ASV radar set, bolted into the belly of a consolidated Canso flying boat. He's been training for weeks, but he hates it. He switches it on. The cathode ray tube warms up, glowing a sickly green. A single horizontal line bisects the screen. This is the A-scope. All right, Sparky. The pilot's voice crackles in his headset, bored. Find us a target. Mackenzie grips the controls. He is staring at a fuzzy line. When a target, a ship, an iceberg, or a surfaced U-boat is detected, a blip or spike will jump up from that line. The position of the blip on the line tells him the range. 10 miles, 5 miles, 2 miles, but it doesn't tell him where it is. Left, right, dead ahead? Got a spike, Mackenzie calls out. Range, 6 miles. Right, the pilot sighs. Where is it, son? Mackenzie has to guess. Try port, swing us port. The Canso, a heavy, lumbering beast, banks slowly to the left. Mackenzie watches his A-scope. The blip wavers and shrinks. No, lost it. Back to starboard, swing starboard. The pilot curses, hauling the plane back. This is the homing technique, a clumsy, infuriating zigzag across the sky, trying to find the peak of the blip. By the time they are on top of it, the U-boat captain has heard their engines, crashed, dived, and vanished. After they land, the pilot, a veteran of the Atlantic convoys, claps Mackenzie on the shoulder. Still playing with your magic box, kid. Don't trust it. It'll get you killed. Your eyes, he says, tapping his own. That's the only thing that works out there. The crew chief nods. Boffins, just more wires to fix. Radio kids. The name sticks. These young technicians, sent to install and operate this complex as unreliable magic, are seen as a joke. They are junior, non-combatant technicians, getting in the way of real sailors and airmen. Back at the NRC in Ottawa, the scientists know the A-scope isn't good enough. It forces the operator to be an interpreter, a scientist, when he needs to be a hunter. A small team, led by men like Donald Hings, is working on the problem. They aren't just thinking about the signal, they are thinking about the display. A young British scientist on exchange, Geoffrey Hensby, suggests an idea so radical it seems like science fiction. What if, instead of a simple line sweeping left to right, the beam swept from the center of the screen to the edge? And what if that sweep wasn't static? What if it rotated? What if the antenna on top of the ship or plane rotated 360 degrees, and the sweep on the display rotated in perfect synchronization with it? A switch is thrown on a prototype. The cathode ray tube hums. A single line of green light appears, not horizontally, but vertically. And then it begins to move. It sweeps around the screen, once per second, like the second hand of a clock, painting a faint, glowing after image. They bring in a test signal, and there it is, not a blip on a line. A dot of light. The center of the screen is their own ship. The position of the dot on the screen shows the target's exact bearing and exact range. It is a map, a crude, flickering, green and black map of the world, painted by invisible radio waves. A technician places his hand in front of the transmitter horn. A fuzzy, indistinct shape appears on the screen. He moves his hand. The shape moves in real time. They are the first men in history to see it. They call it the Plan Position Indicator, the PPI. This is the invention that will change everything. It is the single greatest leap in radar technology of the entire war. More important, even, than the magnetron itself. It is the display that every modern radar, from air traffic control to a battleship's fire control, will use for the next 80 years. And it was born in a Canadian lab, but in the summer of 1942 it is just a delicate hand-built prototype. The Battle of the St. Lawrence is raging. U-boats are sinking ships at will. The radio kids have just invented the weapon that can stop them. Now. They have to build it by the thousand. They have to install it in the freezing, pitching hulls of corvettes and the vibrating bellies of patrol bombers, and they have to prove to the skeptical, battle-weary veterans of the Atlantic that their magic box is not a joke. It is the key to survival. October 24th, 1942, 3:10 a.m., the Mid-Atlantic Gap, 500 nautical miles southeast of Iceland. The inside of the Arcaf Canso flying boat is a vibrating cavern of freezing aluminum. Sergeant Bill Mackenzie, the 20-year-old radio kid, is no longer staring at a single ambiguous line. He is staring at a universe. In front of him is the new Canadian-built ASG, air-to-surface vessel radar, shipped straight from the Research Enterprises Limited, REL, factory in Toronto. And at its heart is the Plan Position Indicator. The green sweep line moves like a clock hand, relentlessly painting the dark world outside. The center of the screen is his aircraft. The glowing concentric circles mark the range. 2 miles, 5 miles, 10, 25. Outside there is nothing. A moonless night, total cloud cover. A 40-knot wind whips the sea into black mountains. They are trolling the convoy lanes. A blind sentinel. The pilot's voice, the same pilot who once mocked him, crackles in the intercom. "Anything on your magic lantern, Sparky? I'm seeing ghosts in the spray. Nothing but sea return. Skipper? Stand by." A new dot of light, brighter than the fuzzy green noise of the waves, has just appeared at the very edge of the screen. It is sharp, hard, and persistent. Mackenzie leans in, his face bathed in the green glow. He waits for the next sweep. Sweep. The dot is still there. Sweep. It is there again, and it has moved, just slightly. His voice is steady, adrenaline cutting through the cold. "Contact. Bearing 020. Range. 24 miles. The pilot's casual tone vanishes. "You sure, Bill? That's a long way out for this stuff." "It's a hard target, sir. Not a wave. Moving south-southwest at about 10 knots. It's a surface target." A surface target. In this weather, at this hour, in the middle of the black pit, it can only be one thing. A U-boat, surfaced, charging its batteries, breathing its diesel engines, feeling perfectly safe in the storm and the dark. "Right," the pilot says. "We're going hunting. Take us in, son. You have the con." The dynamic in the cockpit has inverted. The pilot, the navigator, the gunners, they are all blind. The 20-year-old radio kid is now the only man on Earth who can see their prey. "Alter course to 020, Mackenzie orders. His eyes locked on the PPI. The Canso banks heavily, groaning as it descends into the thicker, turbulent air. Mackenzie watches the dot. It crawls from the edge of his scope toward the center. Range, 15 mile. Target steady. Range, 10 miles? He's still on the surface. He has no idea we're here. The crew readies the depth charges. The belly doors grind open, letting in a howl of frigid air. Range, 3 miles. Descending to attack altitude. Range, 1 mile. Mackenzie says, his voice tight. "Steady. Steady." The pilot is flying into total blackness, his knuckles white on the yoke, trusting a green dot on a screen. "Stand by, Lee light. He's dead ahead. Range, 1/2 mile. Now!" The co-pilot flicks a switch. A 22 million candle power beam, the Lee light, snaps on from the wing. It cuts a perfect circle of daylight into the raging sea, and in the center of it, U-627. The German lookouts, blinded, throw their hands up. They scramble for the conning tower hatch. There is a flash, their 20mm flak gun opening up. It is too late. Bomb's gone. The Canso roars over the conning tower so low Mackenzie can see the men's faces. 4 250-pound depth charges set for a shallow run. Tear into the water. The pilot banks hard, killing the light. The blackness slams back in. A moment later, 4 dull, massive whumps shake the Canso's airframe. When they circle back, there is nothing. Just diesel oil and debris, briefly visible in the foam. The magic box works, and it isn't just in the air. This new Canadian-built technology is flooding into the Royal Canadian Navy. At the dockyards in Halifax and St John's, teams of RCAF and RCN technicians, more radio kids, are swarming over the fleet. They're working in the freezing spray, hauling heavy, delicate units onto the pitching decks of corvettes. Aboard HMCS Shediac, a Flower-class corvette preparing to escort convoy SC-107, the captain is skeptical. His ship is already overloaded. "Another bloody aerial," and the captain mutters to his first lieutenant. "Weighs a ton, makes us top-heavy, and this PPI? It's on the bridge? Not tucked away in some radio shack?" "That's the order, sir," the young RCF technician says. His hands roar from tightening the bolts. "The operator needs to be with you. You need to see what he sees." The captain grunts. "My ASDIC operator is all I need. He hears the U-boat. That's how we kill them. This is a toy." 1 week later, convoy SC-107 is in hell. A Wolfpack of 15 U-boats is tearing them apart. The sea is on fire. Exploding tankers light the night, revealing the silhouettes of sinking freighters. On the bridge of the Shediac, the captain is desperately trying to find an attacker. The ASDIC sonar is useless. It can only ping for submerged targets. But the U-boats are attacking on the surface. At night, faster than his corvette can travel, weaving between the merchant ships like wolves in a flock. The air is filled with screams on the radio and the whoosh of torpedo wakes. "Sir!" A 19-year-old RCN radar operator huddled in the corner, his face pale, points a trembling finger at his PPI scope. The captain had forgotten he was even there. 3 contacts, bearing Red 45, range 4,000 yards, and another, Red 70, 3,000 yards. They're inside the convoy. "Sir, between the columns." The captain leaps from his chair. He stares at the glowing green screen. The operator is right. He can see them. 3 distinct, hard dots, moving fast. 3 U-boats. "Hard a starboard," he roars. "Full ahead, fire star shell, bearing Red 45. The Shediac leaps forward. A shell screams into the night and bursts, illuminating a surfaced U-boat, its grey hull slick with spray. Ramming speed, open fire. The corvette's 4-inch gun fires. The U-boat, caught in the sudden light, crash dives, disappearing in a swirl of foam. "New course, Red 70, the captain shouts, his eyes now glued to the PPI. "Hunt the second one." He's no longer blind. His slow, clumsy corvette has just become a night hunter. The plan position indicator has given him eyes. Back in Ottawa, the NRC and REL are in a full-blown production war. They have to. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, furious at the new radar flak, has ordered his entire U-boat fleet to be refitted. They are being armed with heavier anti-aircraft guns. And, more terrifyingly, they are being equipped with new listening devices, radar detectors, devices like the METOX receiver. The Germans have figured out that they are being seen. Now, the radio kids' equipment will be turned against them. The Kanso's radar, which was once a silent hunter, will now become a beacon, screaming its presence to any U-boat within 50 miles. The deadly, invisible game of electronic cat and mouse is about to begin, and the radio kids will have to invent their way out of it, again. February 17th, 1943, 1:20 a.m., North Atlantic, 400 miles west of Ireland. Sergeant Bill Mackenzie is cold, tired, and deeply unnerved. His Kanso, F for Freddy, is hunting over the top of convoy on 166, a slow-moving mass of 63 merchant ships. And for the last 3 hours, his magic lantern, the once infallible PPI, has been lying to him. "Skipper, I've got another one," he reports, his voice flat, all the triumph from months ago gone. Bearing 090, range, 18 miles. Right, the pilot's voice is grim. "Let's see how long this one sticks around. Course 090, the Kanso banks." Mackenzie keeps his eyes glued to the scope. He watches the green sweep, sweep. The dot is there, sweep. The dot is there, sweep. The dot is gone. "He's dived, sir," Mackenzie reports, a knot of frustration in his stomach. Target vanished. Range, 16 miles. The pilot swears, hauling the Kanso back onto its patrol pattern. "That's the fourth one tonight. They can hear us coming. This box of yours is ringing a bloody dinner bell. This is the new, terrifying reality of the air war." On the conning tower of U-621, 400 miles away, a German Funkermat, radio mate, named Hans Strasser, adjusts the headphones of his METOX receiver. It's a crude wooden box, nicknamed the Biscay Cross for its antenna, but it is lethally effective. For the last hour, Strasser has been hearing the dit-dit-dit of the British and Canadian search radars, sweeping the sky. The sound gets louder as the Kanso approaches. "Flieger!" he shouts down the hatch. "Aircraft! Bearing 090, getting loud." Captain Lieutenant Max Kruger, on the conning tower, doesn't even hesitate. "Alarm! Tauchen! Alarm! Dive!" The U-boat's horn blares. The lookouts tumble down the hatch. Within 30 seconds, U-621 is gone, slipping beneath the waves, leaving nothing for Mackenzie's radar to see but the empty, raging sea. The radio kid's invention has been neutered, and then it gets worse. Grand Admiral Dönitz, enraged by his losses in 1942, makes a new order. Do not dive. Stay surfaced. Fight back. March 28, 1943, Bay of Biscay, an RCAF Wellington bomber. T for Tommy, equipped with the same ASV 2 radar, is on an anti-submarine patrol. The young radar operator, a new recruit from McGill University, gets a blip. It's perfect. A hard, solid contact, 10 miles out. "Target confirmed. Skipper!" he calls out, his voice high with excitement. "He's not diving, we've got him." "Right," the pilot says. "This one's for the boys in on 166. Going in, stand by, lee light." The Wellington drops to 200 feet, thundering through the night, homing in on the radar signal. The operator counts down the range. 3 miles. 2. 1 mile. Stand by. Now. The lee light snaps on, illuminating the sea. But instead of a single, surprised U-boat, the crew stares into a hellish wall of green, red, and white tracers. It's a flak trap. 4 U-boats, sailing in formation, their decks bristling with 20mm and 37mm anti-aircraft guns. The air is filled with the thump-thump-thump of cannon shells striking the Wellington's aluminum skin. The cockpit explodes. The port engine is on fire. T for Tommy cartwheels into the sea, consumed by a fireball of aviation fuel. The radio operator, the radio kid who led them in, is killed instantly. The tide has turned, violently. The hunters have become the hunted. The news hits the National Research Council in Ottawa like a physical blow. The letters from Coastal Command are desperate. The radar, their invention, is now a liability. It's a beacon that either warns the U-boats or leads Allied crews into an ambush. The radio kids are distraught. They aren't just scientists. They have friends in those cockpits. They've trained those operators. They go back to their benches, fueled by a cold fury. The problem is not the PPI display. The problem is the frequency. The ASFENG-2 operates on a 1.5 meter wavelength. It's long-wave radar. It requires a large antenna, and its signal is loud, easily detected by the crude German METOX. But the British TISAD mission had brought something else, the cavity magnetron, a device that could generate centimetric radar at 10 centimeters wavelength. The signal is infinitely more precise, the wavelength too short for the German METOX to even hear. The Germans, in fact, believe airborne centimetric radar is a scientific impossibility. The challenge is monumental. Take this fragile lab bench miracle and turn it into a rugged, mass-producible piece of military hardware that can be bolted into a freezing, vibrating patrol bomber. The NRC and Research Enterprises Limited, REL, in Toronto go to war. They work 24-hour shifts. They retool their entire production line. They must invent new waveguides, new receivers, new rotational joints for a new type of scanner. They call their new system the HRC. It is a masterpiece of Canadian engineering. It is a 10 centimeters as a high-frequency centimetric radar. It uses the same beautiful, intuitive PPI display. Its signal is invisible to every German detector in existence, and its resolution is so high it can not only see a conning tower, it can see the tiny, fleeting shadow of a periscope. In the spring of 1943, the first sets are secretly loaded onto ships and flown across the Atlantic. They are installed by RCAF technicians, the same radio kids, now veterans of the electronic war, in the noses of Coastal Command's bombers. Sergeant Bill Mackenzie, his crew having miraculously survived a flak ambush by sheer luck, finds himself staring at a new, modified scope in a new, consolidated B-24 Liberator. The old blips are gone, replaced by a sharper, finer, almost photographic picture. The pilots are skeptical. Is this another trap, Bill? Boffins in Ottawa say this one's different, Mackenzie replies, his hand on the gain control. They say the Hun can't hear this one at all. The stage is set. It is May 1943. Dönitz, confident in his METOX and his flak traps, has sent the largest Wolfpacks of the war into the Atlantic. Over 100 U-boats are converging on the convoy lanes. What they don't know is that Coastal Command is no longer blind. And this time, they are also invisible. The month that was supposed to be the U-boat's greatest victory will become known in German naval history as Schwarze Mai, Black May. May 12th, 1943, 02:30 a.m., the North Atlantic, 600 miles west of Brest de France. On the drenched conning tower of U-621, Kapitän Lieutenant Max Kruger scans the black horizon. The sea is moderate, the wind cold, his boat is surfaced, the welcome thrum of the diesel engines vibrating through his boots as they charge the batteries. He feels safe. His Funkermat, Hans Strasser, sits below, his ears pressed by the headphones of the METOX receiver. Anything? Strasser? Kruger calls down the hatch. Still quiet, Herr Calo. Strasser's voice echoes up. Not a sound. The Tommies are blind tonight. Kruger nods. His METOX is his shield. The crude British 1.5 meter radar. He knows can be heard for 50 miles. It gives him all the time in the world to dive. This new tactic, staying surfaced, trusting the METOX, has worked for weeks. He raises his binoculars. Nothing. Just the endless, empty black. 30 miles away, in the freezing belly of an RCAF B-24 Liberator, Sergeant Bill Mackenzie leans toward his new, grey-painted RCC radar set. He is staring at a pinprick of light. It is not the fuzzy, ambiguous blip of his old ASV set. It is a sharp, hard photographic point on his plan position indicator. Skipper? Mackenzie's voice is calm, clinical. I have a target, bearing 180, range 31 miles. It's a U-boat, on the surface. He has no idea we're here. The pilot's voice is equally steady. Taking us in. Bill, not a sound from anyone. Silent running. The Liberator, a 4-engine hunter, descends from 8,000 feet, its engines throttled back. Inside U-621, there is no warning. The Metox receiver on Strasser's desk is completely, totally silent. The 10 centimeter centimetric waves of the new Canadian radar are on a frequency his machine cannot even comprehend. It is, for all intents and purposes, magic. Mackenzie cons the aircraft, his eyes never leaving the green glowing map. The pinprick of light crawls from the edge of the scope, past the 20-mile ring, past the 10-mile ring. Range 10 miles. Target steady. He's still on the surface. Charging batteries, I'd bet. Range at 5 miles, descending to attack altitude. Range 2 mile, open bomb bay doors. A low hydraulic hum is the only sound in the aircraft. 1 mile, Mackenzie says, his voice a whisper. Steady. Steady. He's dead ahead. Kruger, on the conning tower, finally hears it. A low, changing thrum in the night sky. An aircraft engine. He spins, his blood turning to ice. Where? The Metox was silent. Flieger, The world turns to day. The 22 million candle power ley light snaps on, perfectly framing the U-boat. Kruger is blinded, his shout turning into a scream. The roar of 4 Hercules engines is directly on top of him. Target identified. Stand by, the pilot shouts. Mackenzie, staring out the blister window, sees it all. The tracers from the U-boat's flak gun, firing wildly, uselessly, into the sky. The 4 depth charges dropping in a perfect, shallow-set stick, bracketing the submarine. The Liberator roars past. The light snaps off. Mackenzie counts. 1, 2, 3. 4 colossal pillars of water erupt in the blackness. The shock waves, even at 200 feet, rattle his teeth. When the pilot circles, there is nothing left. U-621 and her crew of 45 men are gone. Mackenzie leans back, letting out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He keys the intercom. Skipper, target destroyed, resuming patrol. This is Black May. All across the North Atlantic, this same scene is being repeated. Night after night, Donitz's Wolfpacks, sailing in unprecedented numbers, are being systematically, brutally, and silently annihilated. Arcaf, ORAF, and American USN aircraft, all equipped with the new 10 centimeter radars, many of them the 9,000 sets built by the radio kids at Canada's RAL, are falling on the U-boats without warning. The German U-boat crews are in a state of primal terror. They have lost their shield. Their trusted Metox is silent. They are being hunted by an invisible, omniscient enemy. They radio back to Donitz's headquarters, their messages frantic. Attacked in total darkness, no radar warning, bombed by invisible aircraft. The Metox is useless. We are blind. They call the new Allied weapon Zauber, sorcery. In the first 3 weeks of May 1943, the Allies sink 18 U-boats. The next week, they sink 12 more. By the end of the month, 41 U-boats are at the bottom of the Atlantic, a full quarter of Donitz's entire frontline strength. The loss of experienced crews is catastrophic. On May 24th, 1943, a shattered Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz concedes defeat. He radios his fleet. His words a death knell for the Wolfpack. The losses have reached an unbearable level. The enemy has new location devices, which make it possible for him to locate U-boats by day and by night. We must temporarily withdraw from the North Atlantic. The battle is to be broken off. The Battle of the Atlantic, the longest and most critical campaign of the war, is over. It has been won. It was won by the codebreakers at Bletchley Park. It was won by the sheer number of escort carriers. But the killing blow, the technological advantage that turned the tide in a single month, was the centimetric radar. And at the heart of that victory was the Canadian contribution. The British invented the magnetron. The Americans perfected the airborne sets. But it was Canada's National Research Council and Research Enterprises Limited that had solved the 2 most critical problems. First, they had invented the plan position indicator. They took radar from a confusing A-scope line and turned it into an intuitive map. On the bridges of Royal Canadian Navy corvettes, captains no longer needed an interpreter. They could see the entire battlefield on the green screen. They could vector their destroyers, dodge torpedoes, and hunt U-boats in real time. Second, they had been the industrial powerhouse. They built the sets, by the thousands. The radio kids, the university graduates and ham radio hobbyists, had become the armourers of the Allied victory. When the RCN and RCAF technicians, men like Bill Mackenzie, walked into the mess halls back in Halifax or St. John's, no one called them boffins or radio kids anymore. The grizzled Navy captains and swaggering pilots would quiet down, buy them a drink, and ask, with a new, genuine respect, "Can you make it see further?" The war in the Atlantic was won, but the technology of the radio kids was just getting started. The entire Allied invasion of Europe was now being planned, and it all depended on knowing, down to the second, where the enemy was. The Canadian radar, born to hunt U-boats in the dark, was now being adapted for a new, even more critical role, to see every ship, every E-boat, and every shell splash in the English Channel. It was going to D-Day. June 5th, 1944, 23:40 hours, the English Channel, Sector Sword, 22 nautical miles off the coast of Normandy. The sea is a black, chaotic mass. A 20-knot wind cuts across the decks of His Majesty's Canadian ship Haida, a tribal-class destroyer. She's part of the 10th Destroyer Flotilla, the tip of the spear for the largest amphibious assault in human history. In a tiny, windowless compartment deep within the ship, the radar plot. Sub-Lieutenant David King, RCNVR, breathes in the hot metallic smell of ozone and warm electronics. His face is a pale green, illuminated by the glow of his plan position indicator. This is not the hunt for a lone submarine in a vast ocean. This is an operator's nightmare. His PPI scope is not empty. It is saturated. A solid, granular mass of green light pulses and flickers. It is the Allied invasion fleet, over 6,000 ships, a moving continent of steel, all crammed into a 50-mile wide channel. King's job is not to find a target. His job is to find the one target in that blizzard that isn't supposed to be there. He's no longer a radio kid. He is a hunter-killer operator, a new breed of electronic warrior. The equipment he is using, the Type 271 naval radar, is another marvel from the labs in Ottawa and the factory floors of Research Enterprises Limited. Its high-frequency 10 cm beam is so precise, it can pick out the conning tower of a submarine at 10,000 yards, or resist as they are about to find out as the lower wooden-planked hull of a German Schnellboot, the E-boat. Plot. Bridge. Command reports high-speed E-boat packs have slipped their pens at Cherbourg. The captain's voice, calm and metallic, buzzes from the intercom. They're coming for the troop ships. They're yours to find. King. Don't let them get through. Aye, Captain, King says, his eyes never leaving the sweep. He has a new tool, a switch labelled IF. Identification, friend or foe. He watches a suspicious, fast-moving blip near the French coast. He triggers the IF. A radio pulse shoots from Haida's mast. The blip on his screen does not squawk back. It does not bloom or change. It is silent. It is hostile. Captain, radar plot. King's voice is sharp, cutting through the hum. Multiple high-speed contacts, bearing 220, range 14,000 yards, course 050, speed 40 knots. These are not ships. They are torpedoes with engines. Plot bridge. The captain's voice is tight. The con is yours. Take us in. The Haida vibrates. A deep shudder running through the deck as the engine telegraphs ring for full ahead. The destroyer leaps forward, carving a 35-knot turn that throws King against his bulkhead. But he never looks up. He's no longer on a ship. He is the ship. He's steering 2,000 tons of steel from a dark room, his entire world compressed into a 9-inch glowing circle. Steady on course 220, he calls into his microphone, his eyes tracking the enemy dots as they weave toward the unsuspecting transports. Range, 10,000 yards. They're splitting, tracking lead group. This is the war the radio kids have built. Not a simple detection, but a complex battlefield management system. The data from King's scope is being fed electrically, in real time, to the Admiralty Fire Control Table, the ship's analog computer. He is not just an observer, he is the first link in the kill chain. Range 6,000 yards, target still clean, no IF, squawk. Bridge, plot. The captain's voice again, requesting Starshell. Aye, sir, firing Starshell. 2 thumps echo through the hull, miles away. The sky above the German E-boats ignites, bathed in the blinding white magnesium glare of parachute flares. Targets identified, the lookout's voice screams over the intercom. Yes, 3 E-boats, port bow. Plot, bridge, engage! Engage! King shouts, though his job is already done. The hider erupts so the Forbes 7-inch main guns fire, a deafening concussive roar that shakes the dust from the radar plot's ceiling. King watches his PPI, the 3 hostile dots, now just 4,000 yards away, scatter. Another salvo, the ship's guns, slaved to the radar data, are firing blind, but with deadly accuracy. On the PPI, one of the fast-moving dots stops. It flares brightly for one sweep as the shrapnel and explosion reflect the radar pulse, and then it vanishes. It has been hit. Target destroyed. Captain, 2 targets remaining, turning back to Cherbourg. The E-boat attack has been broken. The transports are safe. And while King hunts in the channel, he knows that back home, the very threat that started this whole endeavour has been neutralised. The St. Lawrence, once a U-boat happy hunting ground, is now an electronic fortress, a chain of coastal defence and CD radar stations built by the NRC and REL. Now lines the cliffs from Gaspé to Belle Isle, manned 24/7 by RCAF radio kids. Their overlapping PPI scopes create an unbreakable radar fence. No U-boat can even approach the river, surfaced or submerged, without being seen. The Battle of the St. Lawrence, which began in such terror and blindness, has been won, quietly and decisively, by the same green-eyed magic. The radio kids from Ottawa, once mocked as boffins, have done more than just hunt U-boats. They have built an electronic shield that stretches from the coasts of Canada to the beachheads of Normandy. They have perfected the system of modern war, the seamless integration of detection, identification, and fire control. Their work, once confined to laboratories, now dictates the movement of entire armies and fleets. The PPI, the Canadian-invented map, is now the glowing table upon which the rest of the war will be planned and fought.